Hi, I'm Lila, and I never imagined that the people who raised me would be the same ones to throw me away like trash during the holidays. All while living in a house I paid for. But let me rewind. Because the road to my revenge wasn't a straight line, it was a spiral through manipulation, guilt, gaslighting, and finally, clarity. It started on a rainy December night, 3 weeks before Christmas. I was standing at my kitchen counter, sipping a cup of herbal tea, the window fogged up by the steam from the stove. I'd just gotten off a 10-hour shift. At the clinic, I'm a nurse and was debating whether I had the energy to even shower. Then my phone buzzed. Mom flashed across the screen. I hesitated before answering. Not because I didn't love her, but because every time we spoke, I felt like a teenager again being scolded, corrected, or guilt-tripped. Hey, Mom, I answered, already bracing. Myself. There was no greeting. Just her voice flat and clipped. We all talked and, well, we think it's best if you don't come to Christmas this year. I blinked like maybe I'd misheard. Wait, what? What do you mean I'm not? Coming to Christmas? She sighed one of those long, condescending sighs that made you feel like you were a burden just for existing. It's just been a lot, Lila. You and your attitude, the tension you bring. Honestly, it's exhausting. And we're trying. To keep things light this year, I felt my throat close. Who's we? She didn't hesitate. Me, your father, and your brother. We all agreed. My stomach dropped. I leaned against the counter, the heat from the tea forgotten, but I didn't do anything, I whispered, barely audible. Oh, don't play the victim. You always do this. Ever since you got that job and started acting like you're better than us. There it was. The root of it all, the resentment, the jealousy. They'd always hated that I'd made it out, that I didn't follow their mold. I was the only one in our family to go to college. The only one with a stable career. I worked nights. Paid off my loans. I even ironically paid the mortgage on their house. When my dad lost his job 2 years ago, they didn't know that part yet because I hadn't stopped paying. Yet. Okay, I finally said, my voice shaking. Fine, I won't come to Christmas. She didn't say goodbye, just hung up. I stood there, staring at the silent screen, feeling like the floor had just fallen out beneath me. For a while, I cried. Not loud, messy sobs, but that silent kind of crying that aches in your chest. The kind where you realize you've been replaced, or maybe never belonged in the first place. Then, somewhere around 1 a.m., as I sat curled up on the couch with an untouched mug of cold tea, something snapped. I remembered the paperwork. I remembered that the mortgage on their house was in my name. When my dad got laid off, I'd co-sign the refinance so they wouldn't lose it. They promised to take over payments eventually, but they never did. I'd been quietly covering it ever since, over $1,700 a month for 2 straight years. And this was my thanks. They wanted me out of the family, out of their holidays. Fine, but they could also be out of the house. The next morning, I didn't call them. I didn't text. I didn't respond to my brother's meme in the group chat or my dad's passive-aggressive Facebook post about selfish daughters. Instead, I logged into the mortgage portal and paused auto-pay. The first missed payment didn't raise alarms. Then the second came and went. Still no reaction. On the 3rd month, I got a call from Dad. I stared at his name on my phone. For a moment, I almost didn't answer, but I did. Hello? Lila? His voice was strained, too friendly. Hey, sweetheart, how are you? I smirked. Great, just finishing a shift. You? We've been having some issues. The bank's been sending notices. Something about missed payments. I didn't say anything. Let the silence cook. You didn't cancel something by mistake, did you? He asked, voice tight. No mistake, I said calmly. I just figured since I'm not part of the family anymore, it wouldn't be right for me to keep paying for the family home. There was a beat of silence. Then his voice changed, more defensive now. Lila, come on. Don't be dramatic. We didn't mean it like that. You just needed a break. Some time apart? Oh, I said, pretending to think. You mean like how I needed to be excluded from Christmas? That kind of break? Don't twist things. You twisted them. First, Dad. Click. I ended the call. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. 3 weeks later, the real panic began. I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was shaking, equal parts anger and desperation. Lila, we got a foreclosure notice today. Don't know what game you're playing, but this is serious. We could lose everything. Your father's health isn't great. Please call me back. ID, single quotes, T, dot, not yet. They needed to feel the weight. Really feel it, dot, I watched from the sidelines. As cracks formed, their posts went from cheery family selfies to cryptic quotes about betrayal and selfish children. Then my brother messaged me, "You're really gonna let Mom and Dad lose the house? What is wrong with you?" I didn't respond because the truth was I wasn't letting anything happen. They pushed me out. They made it clear that I wasn't part of them, but suddenly they remembered me not as a daughter, but as a wallet. I want to be clear. This wasn't easy. There were nights I cried again, wondered if I was doing the right thing, if I was becoming heartless, but every time I wavered, I'd replay that call in my mind. We all agreed you're not welcome at Christmas. They made their choice. Now I was making mine, and I wasn't done yet. They thought I would cave, that I'd come crawling back, guilt-ridden and desperate to please like I always had before. But this time was different. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore, begging for their love like it was a reward I had to earn. I was done, dot, and now it was their turn to beg, dot. The foreclosure notice had bought me some breathing room legally and emotionally, but I wasn't out for blood. Not yet. I just wanted them to feel what I felt, unwanted, disregarded, disposable, and it was working. They didn't know I still had access to the home's insurance portal, and the notifications were gold. Property inspection scheduled. Mortgage company flagged the house for risk review. Collections calls marked unanswered. All while they posted Instagram stories like nothing was wrong. Like they still had it all under control, but I could see the cracks, Dad's snappier tone and texts. Mom's quiet deletion of that smug Christmas photo captioned, "Some family is chosen." And my brother? Radio silent until one morning he called. That alone was unusual. Nate never called. "Lila," he began, without so much as a hello. "This is serious now. If they lose the house, they'll have nowhere to go." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how suddenly they remembered I existed. "They'll have you," I said flatly. "You all agreed, remember?" He sighed. "Look, that was Mom's idea. I didn't even want you uninvited." "You didn't." "Stop it either. That's not fair." Save it, Nate." I ended the call. My heart was pounding, but I felt powerful for the first time in years. I wasn't just the family doormat anymore. I wasn't their emotional punching bag. I was the one holding the keys, literally. And financially, dot, it was around that time that memories started flooding back. Not just from this Christmas, but from all the others, like the year I gave them handmade gifts because I couldn't afford anything fancy, and Mom said, "Oh, arts and crafts. That's cute." Or when I worked back-to-back night shifts just to afford a plane ticket home, and they left me alone at the airport because they forgot what time I landed. I remembered the way they treated my career like a joke. "She's just a nurse," Dad would say. Not a real doctor, but close enough. Or how they'd accidentally exclude me from group chats. Family dinners, vacations. But they never forgot the mortgage payment. Oh no, they knew exactly when that would hit. And it hit every month until I hit back. 1 week before the foreclosure auction. I got another voicemail. This one was different. It was mom crying. Lila, please, please don't let this happen. We're going to lose everything. The stress is killing your father. We didn't mean to push you away. We just thought, God, I don't know what we thought, but we're sorry. I'm sorry. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Old habits die hard, but then I reminded myself this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about respect, and they had never given me any until now. When I held something they wanted, the power dynamic had shifted, and I wasn't giving it back. That weekend, I drove by the house. I hadn't been back since summer. The porch lights were off. The lawn was uncut. Even the welcome mat looked like it had given up. I sat in the car, engine running, watching the house like it was a stranger. My childhood home. The place that was supposed to be filled with warmth and love and acceptance. Instead, it had always felt cold, conditional. TRANSACTIONL. They didn't love me. They loved what I gave them. I was done giving. The foreclosure sale was scheduled for the following Monday. I had options. I could swoop in, pay the back debt, reclaim the house completely, or I could let it go, let the bank take it, let them find out what it meant to start over, but I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted to rebuild myself without them. So I made a third choice. I called a realtor. It was poetic. Really, the house was still legally mine since they'd defaulted. So I listed it quietly, privately. No warning. No fanfare. Just a simple lockbox on the door and a sign in the window the next day. For SILE private listing. Cash offers only. They didn't even notice at first. Mom had stopped checking the mailbox. Dad barely left the living room. Nate had gone back to college, acting like it was no longer his problem, and me. I was living in a quiet apartment across town, peaceful, clean, free. A week later, I got an offer full price from a couple relocating from out of state. I accepted, I signed, I closed, and just like that, the house was gone, their free ride, over. The explosion came fast. It was Nate again, furious. You sold the house? I didn't even flinch. Wasn't using it, I said coolly. Figured someone should. They have nowhere to go. I'm sure one of your friends' couches is free. Lila, this is insane. You've gone too far. I chuckled. No, Nate, I finally went far enough. The final message I ever got from Mom was a text. Simple, cold. You're not our daughter anymore. And for once. I smiled reading it because I'd spent my whole life trying to earn a title they never really meant. Now, I was free of it. And for the first time in my life, I finally understood what it meant to choose your own peace. Freedom, it turns out, is quiet. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes in the sound of your own breath steady, calm for the first time in years. After I sold the house, after the final text from my mother, you're not our daughter anymore, I sat on my tiny apartment's balcony with a glass of wine and just breath. I watched the sunset without checking my phone. No group chat dings, no guilt-laced voicemails. No one reminding me of what I owed them. It was strange how light I felt, like I'd finally put down a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying since childhood. But part of me knew the story wasn't quite over, because families like mine, they don't go quiet. Not forever. 3 weeks after the house sale, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was the new owner of my parents' former home. The couple was kind, friendly, even. But they had a problem. Hey, Lila, the woman said gently. Sorry to bother you. I know everything's finalized, but there's been an issue. I braced myself, dot, she continued. Your family. They won't leave. I blinked. They what? They said they have squatters' rights, she explained, clearly embarrassed. They're refusing to vacate. They told the sheriff you illegally sold the home. My blood ran cold. That was a new level, even for them. I thanked her and promised to handle it. Then I hung up and just stared at my hands. They were trying to steal the house back. Even after everything. Even after I saved them from foreclosure. Paid the bills for years, gave them time to make things right, dot. And now they were trying to turn me into the villain? No, absolutely not. I called my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer now. When you grow up with a family like mine, you learn to protect yourself eventually. He told me exactly what to do. Give them 72 hours, written notice, then file for a formal eviction. I asked if we could involve law enforcement sooner. Not unless there's a threat, he said. But you can definitely make things uncomfortable. And that's exactly what I did. I showed up at the house the next day with a clipboard, a smile, and the formal eviction paperwork in hand. The look on my mom's face when she opened the door. Priceless, dot. She had aged in those few months, noticeably. Gray roots showing, eyes puffy, but the attitude still there. What are you doing here? I live here, I replied sweetly. Well, I did. Until I sold it. Her eyes narrowed. You tricked us. No, Mom. I just stopped paying for you to pretend I didn't exist. Dad shuffled into view behind her. This is elder abuse. I almost laughed. It's real estate, I said coolly. You had 90 days to catch up on payments. You didn't. The bank was coming for it either way. I just made sure someone decent got it instead. I handed them the paperwork. You have 72 hours to leave. If you don't, I file for a sheriff-assisted eviction. I suggest you pack. And then I turned and walked away, heels clicking on the porch I once helped repaint as a teenager. Before I realized no amount of labor would ever make me worthy in their eyes, they didn't leave. Of course they didn't. They barricaded the house. Pulled the classic. You can't evict blood from their own home. Tantrum, except legally. Yes, I could, and so I did. 3 days later, my lawyer filed the notice, the court date was set, and this time they couldn't manipulate their way out of it. The hearing was short, dot. My documentation was airtight, ownership, payment records, sale agreements, even a letter from the mortgage lender thanking me for preventing a default, dot. Their argument. Emotion. She's our daughter, Mom sniffled. To the judge. We didn't know she'd sell it. We thought she'd come around. The judge looked at her like she'd just confessed to borrowing a car and refusing to return it. This is a property dispute, not a family therapy session, he said. You have no legal claim to the home. Eviction granted. 10 days to vacate. After that, law enforcement will assist. Boom. They were out in 6, dot, not because they had a change of heart, but because the local news caught wind of the story. Apparently, one of the new owner's friends was a reporter, and the headline was just too juicy. Daughter pays parents. Mortgage for years, gets disowned, then evicts them after they squat. It blew up online, dot. People were on my side. Fiercely. Strangers flooded the comments with support. Good for her. They treated her like a bank. She finally closed the account. She doesn't owe them anything. My mother tried to control the narrative, posting a teary video about betrayal and family values being lost. But by then, the damage was done. She wasn't the victim anymore. I was. And people saw that now, a week after the eviction. I drove by the house one last time, dot. New family photos were already in the windows. The yard looked alive again. Joy had returned to the place, and me. I felt nothing, dot. No sadness. No regret. No longing, dot. Just peace, dot. It's been 8 months now. They haven't contacted me, dot. My brother moved states. Mom and Dad are renting a tiny apartment in a part of town they used to call ghetto. Ironic dot and me. I got promoted, bought my own condo. A little bigger than I need, but hey, after years of living small to help others, I figured I deserved a little luxury. I decorated it how I wanted. Bright colors, no passive-aggressive portraits. No live, laugh, love signs, dot just peace. Quiet, and a locked door with no keys given to anyone who once called me too much. Sometimes people ask if I miss them, dot, and the truth is, I know why. Miss the idea of a family, but not the reality of that one, because love isn't supposed to be conditional. You shouldn't have to pay rent just to feel wanted. They taught me that by showing me exactly what love, ISN single quotes T dot, and in the end, I gave myself the one thing they never could, freedom. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And after everything, I finally understood what that meant. I didn't hate them anymore. I just didn't care. But that indifference, it didn't go both ways because while I was rebuilding, they were unraveling, and I hadn't even heard the worst of it yet, dot. It started with a text from my aunt. My mother's sister, Aunt Claudia, one of the few family members who ever treated me like a person instead of an obligation. Aunt Claudia, hey honey, I'm so sorry. I just saw the news, dot dot. Are you okay? At first, I thought she meant the eviction article. But no. She sent a link, dot. It was a GoFundMe. Title, Help my parents stay afloat after their daughter turned her back on them. I clicked, not knowing whether to laugh or scream. They had the audacity to post pictures of themselves, mom looking pitiful, dad with a walker I'd never seen in my life alongside. A sob story about how they took in their daughter when she was struggling and she sold their home out from under them. No mention of the years I paid their bills, dot. No word about the Christmas banishment, dot. No hint of the mortgage in my name. They framed themselves like martyrs, victims they'd raised over. $9,000 already. I stared at that page for a long time, not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. This was what they did best, rewrite the truth. Weaponize shame. Paint themselves in halos while sharpening knives behind their backs. The comments were infuriating. Kids these days are so selfish. Shame on her. Some people don't deserve parents like you. And then someone found my profile. Within a day, I was being doxxed. People messaged me at work, called me heartless, threatened to report me to the nursing board, dot. It crossed the line, dot. So I drew one of my own. I wasn't going to play their game, but I wasn't going to let them lie either, dot. So I gathered everything. Mortgage statements, payment receipts, court records, texts, voicemails, and I made a video, dot. It wasn't flashy, just me, sitting on my couch, tired eyes and raw voice. I told the full story, every ugly piece of it, with proof. I didn't rage. I didn't cry, I just told the truth. I paid for their house for years, quietly. I asked for nothing. They disowned me for Christmas, and now they want sympathy. I posted it under a throwaway username on Reddit. Within hours, it blew up. People rallied behind me, dot. Not just with sympathy, but fury. Righteous, protective fury. Lawyers offered to help pro bono. Therapists messaged saying, this is textbook narcissistic. Abuse. Donations to their GoFundMe stopped immediately. And then reverse, dot, because when the truth came out, donors asked for refunds. One even reported them for fraud. Their campaign was shut down within 48 hours. They were left with nothing again. And this time, it wasn't because of me, dot. It was because people saw them for who they were, but their spiral wasn't done. One day, I got a call from my old high school friend, Cassidy. Lila, she said, voice hushed. Your mom came into the clinic today. Cassidy worked at the same urgent care center I used to before I switched hospitals. She told the receptionist she was your emergency contact. Said she needed your insurance number. My jaw dropped. She what? Yeah, we flagged it, but I thought you should know. They were trying to use my name. My benefits, they weren't just desperate, they were dangerous. I filed the police. Report the same day. It wasn't just fraud. It was impersonation. I didn't press charges immediately. I wanted them on notice. I wanted them to know the days of taking whatever they wanted were over. I expected silence. What I got was a letter handwritten shaky cursive. No return address, but I knew it was from Mom. You don't have to do this, it began. We're family. We made mistakes, but this is cruel. She didn't mention the insurance scam, didn't apologize. Just tried to manipulate one last time. She ended it with, you'll understand when you have children. One day, you'll see what it's like to be abandoned by someone you raised. I burned it right there on my balcony, watched the words curl and blacken and disappear. It was the last time I ever read anything she wrote, but still, I wasn't done healing, not even close, because even after reclaiming my life, my money, my name, I still had to face the ghost they left behind. And in the next chapter of my life, I would, but this time on my own terms. There's a strange emptiness that comes after revenge, not regret, not when it's earned, but something else. Like waking up after a storm. Everything is quieter, still, almost too quiet. After I burned that letter, I stared at the ashes in my balcony planter and asked myself a question I never thought I'd ask. What now? Because the truth is, my life had been shaped by them. For better or worse, every decision, every detour, every tiny act of rebellion had been a reaction to them fighting for their approval, resisting their control, trying to prove I was enough. And now they were gone, not dead, just finally irrelevant. I should have felt free, triumphant, but part of me still felt like a kid waiting for a shoe to drop. So I did something that terrified me. I started therapy. My therapist, Dana, didn't flinch when I dumped my entire story on her in our first session. She didn't pity me, didn't recoil. She just nodded slowly and said, you were conditioned to believe love must be earned. Let's unlearn that. It shook something loose in me. I thought therapy would make me feel broken. Instead, it made me realize I was surviving in a system that had always been rigged. She helped me identify patterns, the guilt, the chronic overgiving, the way I attracted people who took and took until I had nothing left. And she helped me see how much of that began in that house. With that family, I started writing things down. Not for court, not for social media, but for myself. Things they said, things I wanted to say back, but never did. Every hurtful moment that I gaslighted myself into forgetting. And one day, Dana said, what would it look like if you gave that little girl inside you what she never got? I didn't have an answer then, but I would soon. Around that time, I reconnected with someone I hadn't seen in years. Her name was Zoe. We'd been roommates for a single semester in college, brief, chaotic, beautiful friendship that fizzled out when life got busy. She reached out after seeing my story online, said she couldn't stop thinking about it. Said she had a guest room if I ever needed to escape. So one weekend, I took her up on it. We drank tea, baked cookies like we were 19 again, watched trash TV. And then she asked the question I didn't realize I'd been avoiding. Do you ever want to talk to them again? I was quiet. I don't think I want to, I said slowly. But I do wonder what they'd say if I called. If they'd lie again, or beg, or pretend nothing ever happened. Zoe didn't push. She just nodded. But that night, I dreamed I was back in that house, only this time I had the keys, and they were knocking from the outside, begging to come in. 2 weeks later, I got another letter. This one came to my work address, clearly a boundary they hadn't just crossed, but stomped on with steel boots. It wasn't from Mom this time. It was from Nate. His handwriting was cleaner. Still familiar, he said he was sorry for the Christmas exclusion, for not speaking up, for not doing more to stop them. He said he knew the GoFundMe was wrong, that the insurance thing wasn't his idea, that he was trying to find a way out too. And then, at the end, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I miss my sister. And if there's any part of you that misses your brother, I'm here. I reread that letter 5 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't touch it again for weeks. Therapy helped. Me untangle the knot. I told Dana I wasn't ready to respond. That part of me wanted to scream at him, and part of me wanted to hug him, and both of those feelings scared me. She said something I'll never forget. You don't owe anyone reconciliation. But if you do decide to open the door, you get to choose the terms. So I wrote him back, just a short letter. I'm not ready for a relationship, but I appreciate your words. I hope you continue to grow. Take care of yourself. I didn't send a return address. I didn't invite more. I just let it be. And that was enough. That fall, something happened that finally closed the last chapter for good. I got a call from my realtor, same one who helped sell the house. You're not gonna believe this, she said, half laughing. What? Your mom tried to buy it back. I froze. She came into our office with a man looked like a relative and asked if the house was for sale again. Said she used to live there. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw up. She told me. She had cash from a lawsuit settlement, asked me to talk to the current owners and convince them to sell. I shook my head, speechless. My realtor chuckled. I told her it wasn't my listing anymore. And frankly, I wouldn't have helped her if it was. Just thought you should know. They were still trying to reclaim it, still trying to walk backward into the version of the past that suited them. And it hit me hard. They hadn't changed, not even a little. I stopped checking for letters after that. Stopped wondering how they were doing. Stopped giving them rent-free space in my mind. Instead, I focused on building a new home, not just physically, but emotionally. I started volunteering at a shelter, mentoring young girls who aged out of foster care, because I knew what it was like to feel discarded. And I met people who chose me, who saw me, who never once asked what I could do for them before deciding if I was worthy of love. And slowly, I became someone I liked again, not just someone who survived, but someone who thrived. There's one last thing I want to tell you. It happened on Christmas. 1 year to the day after that fateful call. We all agreed you're not welcome at Christmas. I woke up in my condo, sunlight streaming through the windows. No alarm, no tension. Just peace. I made pancakes, played music, watched the snowfall from my balcony, and then my phone rang. It was my best friend. Camila, open your door, she said, laughing. I did, and standing there, bundled in scarves, arms full of hot cocoa and wrapped gifts, was a little army of love, friends, colleagues, neighbors. People who didn't share my DNA, but had shown up for me in every way that mattered. We laughed. We toasted to healing, and I didn't think about them, the people who threw me out because I had built something better. A new kind of family. One that never asked me to earn my seat at the table. Sometimes I wonder if they ever sit in silence and think about me. Do they replay old conversations in their heads? Do they hear the sound of their own cruelty echoing back at them when everything else is quiet? Probably not. People like them don't reflect. They justify, they reframe, they rewrite. But me? I've stopped trying to read a book they keep editing. I've started writing my own. In the months after that Christmas, something began to shift, not just around me, but inside. It wasn't a dramatic change. No grand moment of closure or awakening. Just little things. I stopped flinching when I saw a number I didn't recognize on my phone screen. I stopped dreaming about that house. I Stopped referring to them as my family dot. They were just people I used to know dot, and for the first time, I began to imagine a future that didn't revolve around avoiding the past. Then, something unexpected happened. I got nominated for an award at the hospital where I work, the Florence Award, given to one nurse each year for compassion and leadership. I didn't even know my coworkers had submitted my name. When I walked into the staff meeting that day, I wasn't expecting anything more than stale donuts and another HR presentation. But then they called my name. People stood, clapped up. My manager hugged me and said, "You care like it's instinct, Lila, like it's in your bones." And I smiled because for once, being the giver, the nurturer, the protector, it wasn't being taken for granted, dot. It was being seen, dot, valued, dot, honored, dot. That same week, I got an email from Nate, dot. It was short. Subject, thank you. Body, I'm in therapy now. You were right about everything. Just wanted you to know. That was it, dot. No manipulation. No fishing for forgiveness, dot. Just honesty, dot. And it hit me harder than anything else had, because even though I hadn't forgiven him, I realized something I didn't need to. Forgiveness wasn't a debt I owed, dot. It was a gift I could offer to myself, dot. So I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and whispered out loud to no one in particular, "I forgive you, Nate." I didn't email him back, but I felt lighter just saying it. Around springtime, I started doing something new, something scary. I let myself be loved. I met someone, his name is Jamie. It started casually. He was funny, emotionally intelligent, the kind of man who notices when your voice goes tight even if you say you're fine. He asked questions no one else had ever asked me. What do you need? How do you want to be comforted when you're upset? What scares you about being close to someone? At first I pulled away, waiting for the moment the kindness would snap into cruelty, waiting for the bait and switch I was raised to expect. But it never came. Jamie never made me beg for space, dot, or love, or respect. He gave it freely, dot, and slowly I began to believe that I deserved it. One night, I told him the full story, dot, about my parents, the house, dot, Christmas, dot, the eviction, dot, the shame, dot, the freedom. He didn't look at me with pity. He didn't say, "Wow, that's heavy." He just reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Thank you for surviving that. You never should have had to." And that's when I cried. Hard. Not because I was sad, but because I was safe. And that was new. Over time, I started telling more people, dot, at work, dot, at support groups, dot, at events for young women who grew up with emotional neglect. I became a speaker, an advocate, dot, not because I had all the answers, but because I had lived the questions, because I knew what it meant to be discarded, erased, blamed, and then rebuild from ashes. I told them, you don't have to keep proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You can walk away and still be whole. You are not too much. They were never enough. One day, someone asked me, if you could go back, would you change anything? It was a hard question. Would I erase the pain? The betrayal? The night I got that call saying I wasn't welcome at Christmas? The months of silence, grief, and rage? Maybe, but then I think about who I became because of it. The boundaries. I built out the peace I fought for. The woman I finally met me, and I said, no, I wouldn't change a thing, because everything they took led me to everything I finally found. Came the final thread, the last tie I hadn't yet cut, the legal one. I was still listed as an emergency contact on some of their paperwork. Still technically attached to one old family trust my dad never removed me from. Hired a lawyer again, went through the paperwork, cut every cord, changed every form. It was grueling, but necessary. And when the last document was signed, my lawyer handed it to me and said, congratulations, you're free. And this freedom isn't loud. It doesn't post about itself online. It doesn't throw shade or seek revenge anymore. It's soft. Quiet. Solid. It's mornings with coffee and no dread in my stomach. It's love that doesn't keep score. It's a home where I don't flinch when someone knocks at the door. It's mine. I built it. Brick by brick. Boundaries by boundary. Breath by breath. Asterisk, some wounds don't close with a bandage. They close with time, with distance, with the soft, slow decision to stop reopening them just to prove they hurt. That's where I found myself, not in revenge anymore. Not in pain, but in that in-between space where healing doesn't mean forgetting. Just choosing peace over punishment, but just when I thought the storm had passed. Life threw one more test my way, and it came wrapped in silence. It was a Tuesday. Boring, uneventful. I was folding laundry with a show playing in the background when my phone buzzed an email, subject line. Notice of estate inquiry. At first, I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, my chest tightened. My father had passed away. Suddenly. Heart. Failure. And somehow, even after everything, I was listed as next of kin. No one had updated the legal records. Not even after disowning me. Not after the GoFundMe. Not after the insurance fraud. In the eyes of the law. I was still his daughter. Still responsible. I sat frozen, not from grief, but from a weird, suffocating pressure. The kind you feel when someone hands you a mess they made and expects you to clean it up. There were decisions to be made, paperwork, debts. But the thing that rattled me most, he left me a letter, apparently written months before. No one knew it existed. It had been sealed in a drawer, marked for Lila, if she ever comes back. I stared at the envelope for hours, hands sweating, heart pounding. And finally, I opened it. Lila, if you're reading this, I guess I'm gone. And I guess you're still angry. That's fair. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I messed up more than once. Your mother and we weren't good at parenting. We thought tough love meant pushing you away until you came back stronger. But maybe that just made you learn how to live without us. You were always strong. I just didn't know how to say I was proud of you without feeling like I was losing control. That's on me. If there's any part of you that remembers the good times, the ice cream trips, the math projects, the Sunday pancakes, I hope you hold on to those. Even if we didn't deserve to be remembered kindly. Take care of yourself, kid. I hope you found the happiness we couldn't give you. Dad, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the weight of it settle. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was the closest he ever came to one. And it was enough to close a door I hadn't realized was still cracked open. I declined the estate responsibilities. Legally, I could walk away, and I did. The debts would be processed by the state. The few remaining assets were tied up in back taxes. There was nothing to inherit, nothing to claim, except, I suppose, closure. And even that wasn't given. It was chosen. By me. For me, weeks passed. Then one day, my doorbell rang. It was a courier with a small box. No return address. Inside was a worn photograph. Me and Nee, age 10 and 12, sitting on the front porch of the old house, arms slung around each other, smiling wide. Taped to the back was a note. She's still angry. I don't blame her. But I wanted you to have this. Mate, I sat down on the floor with that photo in my hands and whispered, I'm not angry anymore. And I meant it. That night, I put the photo in a frame. Not to glorify the past, but to honor the fact that even in chaos, there had been some light, some laughter, some piece of me that had once believed love was possible. And maybe that piece deserved to be remembered, not as a monument to them, but as a promise to myself that I would never settle for less again. Jamie came home late that night. He'd started helping his sister run her nonprofit, and it lit him up in a way that made me fall in love all over again. He saw the framed photo on the shelf and raised an eyebrow. I smiled. It's part of my story. I said, but it's not the whole story. He walked over, wrapped his arms around me, and kissed my forehead. No, he said. You get to write the rest. And I did. A year later, I gave a TEDx talk called Chosen Peace, walking away from the family that raised you and creating the one you deserve. It went viral, not because I was particularly eloquent, but because I was honest, brutally, quietly, beautifully honest that people wrote from all over the world, thanking me, crying with me, sharing their own stories. And it made me realize my pain had never been pointless. It had simply been preparation for this, for a voice that could speak, not just for me, but for thousands who still felt voiceless. I never saw my mother again. Last I heard, she moved to Arizona to live with her cousin. I'm sure she tells people I was then grateful. One, that's okay. I don't need the last word, because I have the last piece. And that's louder than anything she could ever say. Peace is quiet, not the kind of quiet that feels like something's missing, the kind of quiet that feels like everything has finally settled into place. That's what my life had become, not perfect, not without scars, but mine. Fully, unapologetically. Finally mine. It had taken me years to get here. Years of being pushed away. Years of giving too much and receiving too little. Years of wondering if I was broken or just too hard to love. But I wasn't broken. I was becoming. I never thought I'd say this, but I found joy in the simplest things now. Saturday mornings with Jamie, sipping coffee on the balcony. Sunday afternoons, walking through the farmer's market, holding hands, laughing about how many types of apples exist. Evening phone calls with Zoe where we talked about everything and nothing, our dreams, our fears, and the messy, miraculous business of being human. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving my family. I was living without them, and I was thriving. My TEDx talk opened new doors. A publisher reached out, asked if I'd consider writing a book. At first, I hesitated. The idea of digging through the past again made my stomach knot. But then I remembered how many people had written to me, how many had said I thought I was alone. So I said yes, and I wrote the book I wish I had when I was 17, 21, 29. It was called Uninvited: How I Found My Worth After Being Written Out of My Own Family. And the day I turned in the final manuscript, I cried harder than I had when I sold the house, because this time I wasn't letting go of something painful. I was putting something powerful into the world. Something that might help someone else walk away from their own Christmas rejection, their own toxic house, their own wounds dressed as tradition. The day the book launched, Jamie surprised me. He brought me to a tiny bookstore down the street where he'd arranged a reading. I walked and expecting maybe a dozen chairs. Instead, I found a room full of people. Some with tears in their eyes, some clutching their copies like lifelines, all of them smiling at me like I was something more than just a survivor, like I was a lighthouse. After the reading, an older woman approached me. Her voice shook. I walked away from my family 3 months ago. My sister said I was selfish. My mother blocked me. I didn't think I'd make it through the holidays. She held up my book. Your words saved me. I hugged her and we both cried. Not because it hurt, but because we weren't alone anymore. Later that night, I asked Jamie something that had been sitting on my heart. Do you ever think we build our lives around what we ran from instead of what we're running toward? He didn't even pause. I think that's how it starts. But then one day, you stop running, and you realize you're already where you're supposed to be. And he was right, because I wasn't running anymore. I was rooted. 1 year to the day after my father passed, I visited the cemetery. Not out of obligation. Not for closure. But for truth. I brought no flowers. Just a single folded piece of paper. I stood at the edge of the grass, staring down at the stone that bore his name, a name I no longer felt tied to. Then I read my letter out loud, not for him, for me. You hurt me. For years, but I survived. I even forgave you. Not because you earned it, but because I needed to let it go. I hope wherever your soul has gone, it's found peace. And I hope you see me now, whole, free, loved. Goodbye, Dad. This is the last thing I'll ever give you. I left the letter at the grave and walked away. The sun warm on my shoulders, and for the first time in decades, I felt completely, undeniably untangled. Months passed, the book did well. Started hosting a podcast for adult children of toxic families. Jamie. And I adopted a rescue dog named Olive. She's a moody, loving, potato-shaped mutt who loves to sleep between us like a tiny queen. My circle grew, not through blood, but choice, chosen family, chosen joy. Chosen boundaries. And on the second Christmas since everything changed, I hosted my own dinner there. We're 15 people packed into my condo. Friends, neighbors, colleagues. Zoe brought cookies. Jamie's sister brought vegan lasagna. Someone's kid drew me a thank you card and spelled my name Layla. And I smiled so wide it hurt. After dinner, we lit candles, and I raised my glass. To all the people who found light after the storm, I said. To the ones who weren't invited, so they built their own table. Everyone clinked glasses. And in that moment, I didn't feel angry, or vindicated, or even victorious. I felt home. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever been told you're too much, too sensitive, too loud, too needy, if you've ever been disinvited, disowned, discarded, let me tell you this, you're not too much. You were always just too much for the wrong people and their rejection. It wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your freedom.